What's a seemingly minor decision you made that ended up having a massive impact on your life? Picked up an abandoned guitar on the side of the road when I was 14. It only had 3 strings, but I loved it and played it non-stop, mostly learning bass parts since I didn't have enough strings to play many guitar parts. It's influenced my life so much, the friends I've made and stayed in touch with, the crazy gigs, moving to 2 different states, the people I've lived with, my work and life experiences. They can pretty much all be traced back to me picking up that 3-string guitar and getting into playing bass and prioritizing that over most other things for so many years. Took the wrong train in a new city to a minimum wage job that I didn't want but needed at the time. Asked a random guy for directions when phone GPS still kind of sucked. He happened to be going in the same general direction. We rode a train together and nerded out on films we were into. He was an aspiring filmmaker, very beginnings of aspirations, and I was just a film nerd without any post-high school education or thought of breaking into the industry. We ended up becoming roommates and collaborators eventually. Sold our first film to IFC like 2 years ago. I was walking home from work as a teenager and I decided to walk through the local school instead of on the street so I could smoke a cigarette without the risk of my mom driving past and seeing me. I saw 3 boys there with their skateboards and in some sort of weird, out of character moment that had never happened before and has never happened again, I went over and introduced myself. We spent the whole day together. I had dinner at one of their houses and met his parents. Almost 2 decades later, those boys are still 3 of my favorite friends on the planet. A dude from my church messaged me condolences after I broke up fairly publicly with my ex. We got to talking. I'm still not sure why I entertained it, but I was bored and alone and he seemed wholesome enough. He offhandedly mentioned he's never pet a chinchilla before, even though they're his favorite animal. I told him the pet shop near me has some, and he asked if I'd like to go pet chinchillas with him that night. It was a complete impulse to agree to it, but our 3rd anniversary was yesterday and my husband is the best thing that's ever happened to me. Not mine, but a family member that doesn't use Reddit. 2 sisters started playing an MMO, younger and older. Younger sister played first, picked the server realm in the class first. Much to the annoyance of older sister. Then older sister got her turn. She chose a different realm out of spite, and chose a different class too. Because of the realm class choices, older sister met in quest to the guy that would be her husband. Her husband would move across the country, and become best friends with the guy that would become younger sister's future husband. I met someone online who was paying too much to park her camper in an RV campground as her primary residence. I told her she could move it up to my driveway and pay me far less. Landlord showed up the day after she moved with a firearm intending violence. She was crazy. 1.5 years later she moved into the house proper, another half year later we married. We got her disability to 100 with the VA and she got me to quit working. So now I get to spend every day home with my wife playing games and watching movies with her and our 4 cats. After getting my BA in psychology, I decided to pursue a graduate education in analytics and data science as opposed to a doctorate in psych. Now I'm working as an analytics developer at an investment fund and I'm living a very comfortable life. I very much enjoy what I do and I think I would have hit a rut if I decided to go down a path that would have ultimately ended up with me sitting in a room listening to people complain about their lives for 8 hours a day. Bleg, probably would have ended up in therapy myself if I was stuck on that train. I was hanging out at a local coffee shop just after a bad breakup. I had 0 friends and just hung out there to be out. I saw these people doing open mic poetry there once a week, so one week, I got up and read something I wrote. People loved it and I became a regular. I met a bunch of new friends and ended up doing poetry, music and acting with them. It launched my life into the art scene in my city, and I became a part of the community. That was 15 years ago. I just got off the phone with one of those open mic friends an hour ago. I was waiting for my lunch order at a carry-out restaurant and picked up a free newspaper that had an article about a new website called MySpace. After work that day I created an account and uploaded some pictures I took with a digital camera I borrowed from work. A few days later I got a message from a woman near me and after exchanging a few messages we met for dinner and one thing led to another and we just celebrated our 17th wedding anniversary. I often wonder what would have happened if I had not read that article. Tackled a robber gang member in my town's city center in 2016 which caused me to move out of the city for my safety, which caused me to move to the countryside and board with a family who motivated me to get a business job, which caused me to go to New York City in 2018, work and finally find I'm not built for corporate business work, which caused me to change careers and move halfway across the world to New Zealand to work to become a biologist, my dream career, and probably not 100% certain where I'll find my future partner. I read a certain book once. It changed my entire life, answered pretty much every one of my major questions, and caused a complete redirection of my ambitions and led to me going into a career that makes me more excited and terrified than I've ever been in my life. Still cannot believe that everything came from such a seemingly inconsequential decision. Edit. Sorry for driving you all mad with suspense lol. The book is My War Gone By, I Miss It So by Anthony Lloyd. Guess what my career is as a mini quest? I impulse bought a list of graphic designers on FB for $200, one of those make a six-figure agency with this list crazy posts. I found a niche and we're doing a good amount now. Previously I had a different kind of business, we've now grown to websites and apps and heavily improved my income. I would not recommend this for everyone, it was still a lot of work to get clients and grow and to research our niche. I honestly felt stupid buying it, but I hated my job and wanted to start a new kind of business. Read a post on a sub from my city saying how much fun BMX racing is. Bought a bike that week and started regularly going to the track at 40 years of age. The very first session at the track, I started talking to someone, which happened to be the op of the post that got me interested. I have been living in this city for over 8 years and hadn't made any new friends until that point. I've lost weight, my kids are now more interested in riding, and I have found a small community of BMX dads to hang out with. I was in my second year of law school and a guy I knew was starting first year law. We had been in the same church group that met up every week for about a year but had never really spoken. I agreed to meet him for a coffee at uni to help him settle into study, but TBH I thought he was kind of odd and I didn't get the sense he liked me much. Turns out we did get along, ended up skipping all our classes that day to hang out. 11 years later now, we've been married for 6. Best coffee I ever agreed to. Got 2 traffic tickets one bad workday. So that would suspend my license due to many tickets. Pissed off and vented to my friend. He was prior service army. Said I should join the army. I was like, "Pho." Next day I drove to recruiting office. Took physical. Joined. Week later in basic training. Met wife. Got married. Made a nice life. Retired enjoying pension. All because some cop wrote me 2 tickets. Ohio never did suspend my license. Somehow I slipped through the cracks. I wanted a mod chip and this led to me becoming a part of the Xbox hacking scene during Xbox One times, was part of a development team who access to source code. I was a painter at the time but mostly unemployed on purpose. Lots of weed. By the craziest mashup of persistence, coincidence, and pure luck, I was able to roll this hobby into a new career path that motivated me, as well as home ownership, private school for the kids and more. Honestly, feels more like luck than anything else. It wasn't my decision, but this kid at high school back in 1997. In art class, he wrote the name of his favorite band on my perspective drawing. I thought to myself, hey, what an asshole, but I kind of like that band too. So I started listening to them obsessively. I made web pages about them and my chat handle was a song of theirs. I met a girl online who also loves that band, talked to her on the phone for a few months, flew out to live with her, married now 25 years. In the year 2000, my brother was on weekend release from jail. I volunteered to be his chaperone. He met a girl somehow and wanted to go visit her in person. We met up and went ice skating into a bowling alley. She brought her best friend as a sort of protection. To cut a long story short, they didn't last long. But the friend? Her and I have been together for 23 years and counting. Deciding to babysit a criminal ended up with me meeting the love of my life. I had finished my first college course and was planning to go back for the higher level of that course. Changed my mind suddenly and went to a different college on a different course. Used that second course and my 2 college level qualifications to score a career that's got excellent benefits, a high salary for someone of my age, career progression and 100 WFH flexibility. I wouldn't have qualified for the job at all had I continued that first field of study. Messaged an old friend who I hadn't really spoken to in about a decade and was working in a resort town I was planning on visiting for an art installation, booked the ticket, COVID happened and everything was cancelled. We kept in touch anyway and they ended up moving back because all the resorts closed as well. We ended up moving in together and now have a baby together. Who would have thought we'd be me? When my first job was downsizing everyone who was a new hire and were moved to other plants, Everyone who had seen me already stayed until the plant closed, which ended up screwing them over because at the other plants they don't have seniority anymore but the new hires do. I decided to quit at the end of the month. Worked at a miserable place working with crackheads and jailbirds, found a job that paid so much more and went there. I'm happy where I am now. Dropped out of high school when I was 14. I had terrible anxiety and the beginning of depression. I couldn't understand the repercussions at the time. I'm now 25, never been in a relationship, no friends, never had a job, no ambitions. Leaving school at such a young age sent me into a spiral I am still not out of yet. Depression got worse, especially these past 4 years. Funnily enough, my social anxiety has improved so much it's basically gone. Went for a river float in NZ, where I had just moved to 2 weeks prior. Couldn't find the slipway we had been told about. 45 minutes later we found it and floated on down the river. Bumped into 2 girls along the way. Got chatting to one in particular. Almost 11 years later we now permanently live in NZ, are married and have a 4-month-old. Had we known where it was I would never have met the love of my life. Strange what avenues life takes you on. I once heard that dairy products can cause acne. At that time I ate mainly yogurts, milk, and cheeses. I've been obsessed with this since childhood. I decided to give up for a week. Surprisingly, my skin is no longer oily, and acne turns out to be not my characteristic sign. I continued and as a result I lost 10 kilograms, my swelling went away. I have not eaten dairy products for more than 4 years and often receive compliments about my clear skin.